Good morning and welcome to another episode of my podcast, Raised by Religion, My Exodus to Freedom. The song you just heard, To Make You Feel My Love, I believe it's a Bob Dylan original. Anyway, I think it's perfect for this episode because it is the song that I sang to my husband at our wedding. And the story I'm going to tell you today is a very personal one. And I'm going to try to keep it as vague as possible as far as the people who are concerned, who are involved, I guess I should say, in this story. But I think it's a story that I need to tell because I know of several people, and I'm sure there are many more who have been through this same situation or something similar. Now, if you know anything about the doctrines of the Church of Christ, you probably know, and you've heard this term or this phrase, marriage, divorce, and remarriage, and what they teach. And just to kind of give you a rundown of what they teach is that once you are married, you are married. It's very similar to Catholicism in that sense. That divorce is a sin, and that once you're divorced, you can't remarry. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I get married and I'm married to a man who is abusive, verbally, emotionally, physically abusive, and I decide to leave him. I cannot get a divorce. And not only that, but I cannot remarry. Of course, if I can't get a divorce, I can't remarry. So I'm being punished for having an abusive husband. Also, if there's any other circumstance besides that person cheating on you, then that's the only quote unquote scriptural reason that you can get divorced is if someone cheats on you, or they call it fornication, which is the same thing. So that is your only reason that you can get a divorce. And even then you are highly scrutinized to the point that they want proof. They want to know, well, how do you know that they cheated? And you have to go through this whole process of, well, I did, he told me, well, we need to talk to him, or we need to talk to her. We need to sit down and have a meeting. And that's another thing about the COC is that they are so involved in everybody's lives, everybody's personal decisions. I mean, they have to know every little detail because they have to have that control. Anyway, that being said, now that you know the doctrine that I'm talking about, I'm going to tell you a story about my husband. He was married before me. He was only married for 8 months. And he was actually, I'll just go ahead and say it was his first love. And he was very young. I think he was 18 when he got married, and she was a little older. And like I said, they were only married for 8 months. She just so happened to be the preacher's daughter of the congregation that he was attending at the time. And they dated for a few years. And about a month into their marriage, she told him she didn't love him anymore, and she made him sleep on the couch. Now, mind you, even before they got married, it's like the community knew about her. They knew that she had been messing around with girls, while she was dating him. But he refused to believe it. And because, when you love somebody, you don't want to believe something like that. You want to believe that they're faithful and he loved her, very much. He's not the type of man that just goes into a relationship without having that love for someone. And so, like I said, a month after they were married, she said, I don't love you anymore. And then about 8 months into their marriage, he came home early from work, and she was there with another woman. And at that point, he told her it was over, and, everything just kind of came together for him at that point. And he said, you're going to give me a divorce. If you don't, I'll drag your name through the mud. He said, I don't want to do that. He said, I just want to end this peaceably. Let's just go to the courthouse, get a divorce. So they did. And, at that point, everybody knew, it wasn't a surprise to many people what had happened. And it was a pretty smooth divorce. I mean, she didn't contest it or anything. So fast forward, when I come into the picture. First of all, just to go way back, I met him when I was 11 and he was 15. It was the first time I ever met him. As soon as I laid eyes on him, I didn't know what love was back then, but he stuck out in the crowd to me, and he was so nice to me, and because there was like 4 years difference, and a lot of guys that age when you're 11, they treat you like you're nothing, but he was always very kind to me, even though he knew that I had a crush on him. He was so nice to me. So at that point, we lived 2 hours away from each other, and I only saw him a couple of times at Bible campus where I met him. So anyway, fast forward to when I was 17. I have several friends. I've had several friends in this area, even though I lived in Virginia, that I met at Bible camp. And I just so happened to be staying with a friend about 45 minutes away from where he lives. And if this isn't fate, I don't know what is. It was on a Sunday night. We both ended up at the same church on the same Sunday night, and found out later that's the first time he'd been to that church in years, and it wasn't his home congregation. So anyway, I just assumed that because I knew he had gotten married, so I assumed he was still married, but she wasn't with him. And then I found out that he was divorced. And so that night, after church, we all went to, several of us went to McDonald's. And, if you know my husband, he's kind of shy at first. And I knew he'd just gotten divorced not that long ago. So, I was taking it slow with him. But I mean, as soon as we met again, it was like, those feelings came. And so I was getting ready. This is before cell phones and all that stuff. So I was getting ready to leave. And I was like, this is when we actually wrote letters and sent them in the mail. And I gave him my address. And I said, let's write. He's like, no, I want your number. So I gave him my number. And I left that night, and I was going to be in town for another week. And that next week, we spent every night together. He came every night. And I was surprised because I thought, he's coming out of a relationship. He's probably doesn't want anything serious right now. But, we, from that point on there, we were dating. It just happened. And so anyway, we lived 2 hours apart, and about once or twice a month, most of the time I would come to his house. At the time, he was staying with his parents. He was living with his parents. He had moved back in with them. And so I would come up here, and of course, I would go to church with him, and this is the church where her dad was still preaching there, and her family was in total denial, which, whatever, that's not even an issue. The issue is that when I went, I was treated very poorly. Like, they weren't mean, but they weren't friendly. It was very uncomfortable. But you know what? I went. Because, you don't miss, even if you're from out of town, you don't miss church services. But I went anyway. And it was very awkward. And, I tried to avoid the preacher as much as I could. Because I could tell he was very uncomfortable seeing me there with his ex-son-in-law. So that was very difficult. Very difficult. But I did it. And I was very naive back then, because I thought, we know that she cheated on him. Let's just forget the whole lesbian thing. I mean, she cheated on him, whether it be a man or a woman. She cheated on him. And so I thought, well, there really shouldn't be an issue here. Well, apparently there was an issue. And like I said, I was so naive. I just thought, they didn't talk to me much because I was different. I didn't talk like them, not from around here, that kind of thing. But anyway, just love how this happened. So 2 weeks before we got married, 2 weeks, the elders from another congregation in the area, and there were no elders at the church, his home congregation. They all decided to have a meeting. So I'm sitting here, like, back then it was a surprise, because I thought we've got, the wedding is set. It's 2 weeks before we're getting married, and all of a sudden you care. So back then I just, it wasn't, I know it sounds weird, but back then it wasn't a big deal. But now looking back, I'm like, that's pretty messed up. That you're going to wait. Like, you knew, like, we had been engaged. We had been dating. Good grief, we started dating in 96, and we got married in September of 98, and we got engaged in June of 98. So everybody knew. I mean, I had a ring and everything. Everybody knew that I was engaged, that we were engaged. But you're going to wait 2 weeks before we get married to have this meeting, as if we need it. And see, that was the thing. Even my programmed brain thought that our marriage depended on what they were going to say. Now, mind you, we probably still would have 100%. We still would have gotten married no matter what anybody said. But it turned out at the meeting that that everything that they decided that that Martin didn't lie, and that everything was fine. And that they gave us the green light, which just blows my mind that we even needed a green light. So we got married. And when we got married, we were attending his home congregation. And still yet, I had that, just that feeling of not being wanted there. And I try, I'm a preacher's kid, so I'm very vocal, and I have leadership qualities just because of how I was raised, and it's my personality. And I always felt like, and another thing too, I always felt like to be a good Christian, you had to have these programs and do these things and teach these classes and have these, Bible studies and have these get-togethers and blah, blah. You got to keep something going, or you're not a good Christian. And, but it just felt like I didn't fit in. And there were comments made in Bible classes. One lady in particular in particular, and she's a miserable woman. But she said in one of the Bible classes, she was like, well, and this is after, I mean, we were already married, and she said, and they were talking about marriage, divorce, and remarriage. And every time that came up, we're at this church, I would like cringe, because I knew somebody was going to say something passive aggressive, which is what she did. She said, now, if you're going to get married again, I wouldn't take the chance, because I don't want to put my soul in jeopardy just to get married. Okay. And, fast forward, we had been married, maybe we were still newlyweds, maybe like a year or so. And this family, it's a mom and dad, their daughter, and her husband. And they all still, as far as I know, they all still go there, I think. But they invited us to lunch after church one Sunday afternoon. Again, me and my naive self, I just thought, oh, this is nice. Somebody is like reaching out and, wanting to make me feel welcomed. And I felt good about it. And I was like, okay. So we get up there, we have lunch, and then the guys went and did their thing, and I was sitting with the ladies, and then I figured out what the purpose of the whole lunch was. And they were talking about that they were worried about if she had really cheated on Martin, and if she hadn't, that we are in a marriage that's not recognized by God, because he's still married to her, and they don't have any proof. Nobody really knows. And then I said, I love that I said this. I can't believe I said this, because I was pretty young at the time. And I said, well, what do you want? Pictures? I was like, because I don't have them. I was like, you either take his word for it or you don't. I said, that's what it boils down to. And so, yeah, and after that, I don't remember anyone saying anything else about it, because I just pretty much put my foot down and said, you can either believe him or not. I believe him. But that's when, I was all about that doctrine, and, and it was difficult for me at first. I was scared to get married to him. I was scared because I was scared that, well, what if we're not married in God's eyes, and then, and then we're lost, and then we're going to hell because we're in this, we're in this adulterous relationship, So I did have some fears before I got married. And that followed us around, especially up there, at that church where we were going. There was even a comment made that, I tell you what, the ignorance of people, it blows my mind. There was a comment made from a man there at that congregation to my mother-in-law, and this was not long after we'd been married, or may have even been before we got married. And he said it didn't count because it was with a woman and not with a man. Yeah, that was actually said because, they had this man, the preacher, it was his daughter that my husband was married to, had him on a pedestal like they do almost every preacher. They're Jesus, they're God, they're, and there's nothing, and they can do no wrong. And, but, and the thing about this family that I found out later is that they were like most preachers' families that I know, and I was a part of, talking about people behind, closed doors, and bashing people, and being nice to their face and acting like they were all buddy, but then going, behind closed doors and just bashing everybody. And that's par for the course. In fact, I remember, and this is kind of going off topic, but I remember being at a get-together not long before I left the church. I was already thinking about it, and I hadn't told my husband yet. I was already thinking about it, though. And I remember for once I was just being objective at this get-together, and it was a small group of us. And all they did was talk about other people. That was it. They talked about this person has left the church, and this person cheated on his wife and he left the church, and this person isn't faithful and they don't come when they should, and blah blah blah. I mean, it was and this person's stupid, but you know, so come Sunday morning, hey, how are you? It's so good to see you. Yep. Oh, sorry, my belly's growling. I haven't had breakfast. Sorry. Anyway, that's par for the course, is that that fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Sorry. Well, you know, if you fake it long enough, you know, but that's the thing though. You can't fake that. Eventually you're going to be found out. You're going to be found out that, you know, and if you're not found out, it's still fake, you know, and it's has no value to be nice to somebody, to cover up the fact that you can't stand them, or that you judge them. Anyway, I'm sorry, I kind of went on a tangent right there. So that's the story of my marriage, and this year will be 25 years of marriage and 27 years together, which is mind-blowing. It's so crazy, so freaking crazy. It has gone by so fast. But I'm going to say this, the best thing that we ever did was leave the church. It's the best thing we've ever done as a couple. It took him a little longer to leave than it did me. He held on for a little longer, but I started the process of leaving before he did. But it's the best thing we've ever done, and we talk about that all the time. Our relationship is better. There's not all that stress since we have separated ourselves from that nonsense. We live our lives as we want to. We don't get permission, you know, to make decisions as adults. You know, we don't go around asking everybody's opinion like I used to do. For every little decision that I made, I have to go, you know, run it by this person and that person. And no, we make our decisions, and when we don't ask for permission, because guess what? We are adults, and we are free to make our own choices, and nobody has to agree with those choices. And it's a freedom that I can't explain. And I'm going off on one more tangent here, and then I'm going to end it. But people think there's this opinion that is, and I used to have this opinion too, so I'll own up to it, that when somebody leaves the church or any church or religion or Christianity, that they're just doing it so they can be bad. They're doing it. I had this comment made to me. Somebody has known me for a very, very, very long time. And they said, so does that mean you're going to go kill, steal, and lie now? Now that you, as if my only reason for having any morals is because I go to that church. No, I'm a human being with morals. I can have my own morals. I could be a good person without your religion. So, sorry about the tangent, but I had to say that because I hear that not just that particular incident, but I've heard that from other people. Like, oh, you just want to go sin. You just want to go. No, I want to be free. I want to be free. I don't want to be controlled by anyone else. That's all it is. I don't want anyone else telling me what to do or how to live my life, what they think is best. If you can have your opinions, that's fine, but that's your opinion. I'm going to make my own decisions. And if I mess up, I mess up, and I won't make that choice anymore. So anyway, thank you for listening. It's been over 25 minutes now, but I just had to get that story out today. It's very personal, and I was kind of iffy about it, but I want to tell my story, and I want to connect with other people who I know, because I know people personally who have been through the same things. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoy your day. And again, thank you so much for your love and your support and for listening. I've somehow gotten over 300 plays. I don't know how that happened, but I'm very thankful for all you guys. So keep checking back with me. I am hoping to get another episode in a few days. Today is Friday, so I'm hoping on Sunday I'll have another one ready for you. I've got a few topics swirling in my head. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.